Gators Breakdown, because there's never a dull moment in Gator Nation.
The Gators Breakdown podcast is ready to go. I'm your host, David Waters. You can find me on social media at GatorDave_SEC. Here we are. Hey, been a while, but lots going on behind the scenes here with good friend, good buddy, and guest once again, Seth Varnadore, joining us right here on Gators Breakdown. And Seth, I wanted to bring you on, of course, and it's coaching clinic season for you.
Yeah, baby, clinic season.
Yeah, so I see Billy Napier's been around. I see Ryan O'Hara's been around as well. Some other clinics around the state, but wanted to bring you on. A couple of weeks ago, you put out kind of your review of what Billy Napier had to say. It was a Nike coaches clinic, I believe, right?
Yeah, Nike Coach of the Year in Orlando.
Yep.
A couple weeks ago.
Yeah, so really enjoyed what you had to say there. I think you spilled about 30 minutes on a video of kind of your review of what Billy Napier had to say. We will get into some of it right here. I definitely don't want to take the limelight away from Seth's video. You guys definitely go watch it after you check out this episode of Gators Breakdown. A lot of good stuff, a lot of good insights. Seth will share a little bit right here on Gators Breakdown. But as we kind of get ready for spring practice as well, we'll kind of concentrate really on the quarterbacks here for the Florida Gators. So subscribe before we get started right here, that like button. It really helps us out right here on Gators Breakdown. Subscribe on YouTube, your favorite podcast platform. Leave a comment. Give us some thoughts on what you think about Seth's breakdown of the quarterbacks. Of course, Seth helping us out so much on gatorsbreakdown.com last year and being there in the Gators Breakdown Plus Discord as well, talking strategy side of the game of football. So, Seth, it gets heated in there sometimes, but all in all, it's pretty good. Especially when me, you, JP Gator, and a few others there. We're just really getting to the nuts and bolts of it a little bit.
Yeah, I'm not tough enough for the main chat yet, so I just stick to football, non-recruiting. I just stick in there and just throw in every now and then. Well, yeah, no, it's a great resource. It's these kind of communities are so much better than being on Twitter. Things like that, a lot more interactive, a lot less hostile, confrontational. So,
yeah, so get that access to that Discord. As I said, you can find Seth in there. Main chat, recruiting chat. As Seth says, the football, no recruiting. It's just the nuts and bolts of football. There, Seth will pop in there from time to time. A lot more during football season, of course, but has been sporadically in there, sharing his thoughts there for the Gators offense. But newsletter, ad-free episodes of Gators Breakdown, all that stuff. Link is in the description to join Gators Breakdown Plus. So, as we said, Seth, clinic season, and of course, I know there was a lot of interest on your side for the Florida side of it. Billy Napier speaking, and of course, 2 seasons through Florida. He was one of the main speakers there at that clinic, and you go into some details that we'll get into, but it sounded overall, we'll get into some details, but overall, it seemed like you were pretty impressed by what Billy Napier had to say.
Yeah, I was not quite sure what to expect from him because he'd kind of the previous years I'd heard him talk. It was pretty similar to a talk he gave when he was at Louisiana on kind of how they structure their offseason and things like that. So, I anticipated maybe I'm going to get that for the third time around. But he did, his presentation was on Graham Mertz's development. I think that was the title of the presentation. But it was really about what they're playing for is for the quarterbacks. And then through that, kind of what they're playing is for the players in the offseason. But I was kind of surprised how in-depth and honest they were about what they thought of Mertz initially, what they thought he needed to get better at, why they decided to take him. And then they showed basically, here's our plan to get a guy better. So at the beginning, they showed Mertz clips from Wisconsin and then paired him up with a clip from Florida the next year where they showed improvement in that area that he lacked at Wisconsin. And then after you kind of got through the Mertz of it all, then we got into more nuts and bolts of just what they do for the quarterbacks. And I just thought it was really well done. And you go to these clinics sometimes and, Mac Brown spoke for an hour, great speaker, said nothing. It's just how it goes sometimes. A lot of these guys will, they're up there. It's great to see them, but if they're not talking scheme, it's just another talk on culture. So it was nice to get something different. This was kind of different than most of the other coaches. The only other guy that was kind of similar was Sarkisian. Gave one on how they game play in the week, but what Napier talked about, it kind of built that in as well. He kind of talked about how they game play and how they incorporate the quarterback. So, yeah, it was really good.
I'm glad you brought that up because this is something I didn't even put in my notes, and it pinged in my head. So I'm glad you brought up Steve Sarkisian. What similarities are there between the Billy Napier offense and the Steve Sarkisian offense? And, of course, Texas and what they've been able to do the last couple of years, and you've seen that offense take off. They both have the background at Alabama, but Sarkisian a little more elevated, having the play call and roll at Alabama over Napier, and you throw Lane Kiffin in there as well. But around there at the same time, I'm sure they shared notes. I'm sure they know each other well. Is there a lot of similarities? I mean, we see the success at Texas, not as much success at Florida.
I think really that's the blueprint for this offense is what he's trying to do what Texas did. Movement, motion, 12 personnel, fast. You saw the Texas guys run at the combine, the receivers. One guy set the record.
Yeah.
The other dude just like 6'4", ran a casual 4.35. No big deal. But that's, if you look at how Florida's recruiting receivers, I think that's kind of the blueprint. They want speed on the outside to be able to take vertical shots down the field, off play action, and RPO stuff. Stark is a little more RPO heavy, I think, than Napier is. But when Napier got hired, I was writing for Alligator Army, and I said, this is, it's not as dynamic, but stylistically, this is trying to be Sark, like 2020 Alabama, how Sark was at Alabama, where they're using bigger personnel groups, a lot of motion, a lot of movement, tagging stuff on the backside of runs. I think that's where he wants to get, and I think that's kind of, if you're looking at like the best case scenario for the offense, that's it. Because, there's your head coach, play caller, all that kind of stuff, which who knows if that's continuing, but that's a whole different day.
We will get into that, by the way, but yeah.
But yeah, I think that to me, when I see that, I'm like, that's kind of the blueprint he's looking for. Texas has done a really good job recruiting offensive linemen and kind of recruiting elite players at skill positions. Florida's not quite been able to hit those highs that Texas has recruiting side.
Seth, you brought it up too. I'm just going off on. I ain't even dive into my notes yet. When you said RPO, it pinged into my head. I was reading something. I forgot where I was reading it, and it said "death of the RPO." Is it trending down? Is it not as reliable, or is it not as ingrained in the playbooks as it once was? Or are coaches starting to get away from it?
I think some people thought it was like a cure-all, that they could just call it every play and it would get figured out. And I saw that last year a little bit, covered USF as well, who coming from Tennessee, a lot of that kind of run pass option stuff. But what happens is, if the defense can confuse your quarterback a little bit, now you might be pulling and throwing into really bad looks, and you're better off just calling a run or calling a pass. So I think that may be part of it. Defensives have seen it enough now that they're making adjustments to it. And, I think there's still a place for it. And it's a lot, there's a ton of RPO stuff that's used just to keep people honest, matching numbers in the box and things like that. So it's not ever going to go away. But I think there were some people, there was an over-reliance on really simple ones, and they just thought they could call it every play and it would automatically work itself out because it's supposed to be like option football theoretically.
Right.
But defenses are doing a good job of showing weird looks and confusing the quarterback, and like stuff Florida tries to do, where they're where they're showing a bunch of guys blitzing and they drop two defensive linemen out, and that kind of stuff can slow it down. I don't think it'll ever go away, but it's like everything; it kind of ebbs and flows.
Gotcha. All right, so we will get into now part of that coach's clinic that you reviewed on your video, and one of the biggest takeaways, and I think we can apply it to Graham Mertz's second season at Florida, him coming back. And the headline of it was, this is getting their quarterbacks ready for the next level. And it's what do NFL coaches and GMs want to know about a quarterback? We'll go through the list here, but how much time does he spend in the building on his own? Well, I think if we go back to a year ago, that's about all we heard about Graham Merz. He steps on campus. You can't get him out of the building. Okay, check that one off. Check that one off. How much freedom does he have at the line of scrimmage? How good is he with defensive recognition? How do we put on him? How much do we put on him in terms of protection? What type of leader is he? What type of learner is he? How passionate is he about the game of football? how does he handle hard? I mean, that's a pretty good list there of how to get these guys ready. What was your takeaway from this list? And if you're evaluating a quarterback, is this a good, ground level to get started to feed NFL teams?
Yeah, I obviously there's some on here that just show how much does this guy, and that's one thing, does this guy love football, and that's, you see how passionate is he, but also how much time does he spend on his own is kind of proof of that. And then to me, the kind of stuff at the line of scrimmage and defensive recognition are really important, especially setting protections and things like that. That's something at the NFL level that, there's all kinds of different protections those guys run depending on what the defense throws at you. And those guys, if they're going to be the ones setting the protection, they've got to be doing that at the college level. There's some colleges that don't set, like they'll have a center set it or somebody else will set the protection. Not everybody has the quarterback set it. Some people will call it. So that's, I think, important to see how far you are along. Defensive recognition is obviously important. And they have a plan on how they teach it. And I thought that was really well done when he talked about that. So these are all kind of things that are important, I think, but just not for quarterbacks. I heard watching the combine this weekend, they were talking about Ricky Pearsall, and they kind of just went off on a tangent and started talking about, when these guys are in interviews, they ask them, do you love football? And everyone says yes. And then the next question is, okay, well, what's your schedule look like? And that, what's your daily schedule look like? And that made me think of something earlier in Napier's presentation where he talked about they have something they call a blueprint for every player. Mm-hmm. They make them plan out their week from wake up till sleep every hour, write it out, and then present it to their position coaches. And the position coach can say, nah, this ain't it. You got to redo it. Like, change this up. But you write down exactly what you're going to be doing. How much you're going to work out. So if I'm Ricky Pearsall and I'm in these interviews, I can pull out my blueprint that I had and say, this is what I do every day. And so I thought that was really interesting, coupled with this, and this was kind of the last slide Napier presented before he kind of did some Q&A at the end. But, I thought that combined with kind of the question of, so what's your schedule? What do you do if you really love football? Was really interesting in terms of how they're trying to get these guys ready for those questions, and not just goes beyond the quarterback position as well.
I'm glad you brought that up, because that reminded me. Bob Redmond did a interview with Devin Manuel, the new offensive tackle over there for the Gators, the transfer from Arkansas. Mm-hmm. And speaking of that schedule, this is just another example of it. It was a recent interview right there on the Florida Victorious board that Hollywood, that Bob Redmond put up there. And Manuel says, man, I think the schedule is pretty crazy. Before I got here, I was looking at that and thinking, man, that's pretty tough. But talking with some of the guys, no one seems worried about it. We play in the SEC, so obviously none of the games will be easy. But he was talking about my bad. That was actually the football schedule. But he was talking about how the schedule, basically that schedule that you're talking about, he's like he feels like he doesn't have any free time in a good way. It's just like everything is accounted for, and it's football. Of course, there's the academic side of it and everything, but there's not wasted time where there shouldn't be. You if you should be doing something at a certain time, you need to be doing that certain thing.
Yeah, and there's no hiding, right? If you're telling your coach, hey man, I love football, what can I do to play? I love football. And he's like, well, let's look at these 2-hour blocks every day that you do nothing, that you put, Madden on, or you're blocking off for NCAA next year. So, those kind of things from the coach's side is interesting, especially because they have to turn these into their position coach, and the position coach evaluates it and can say, hey man, you might need to make an adjustment here or there. So I thought that was really interesting. And then how that combined with all the stuff they ask the quarterbacks to do, it's no joke, man.
Yeah, I was trying to find the exact quote, but man, I can't. Maybe it's in this one. There were 3 separate articles. Oh, here it is. It may be exhausting, but Manuel understands the benefits. He understands that trying to prepare, everyone for life in football and life after. It's a quote. It's really different. I barely have time to be at home. Just that little aspect of not having much free time on my hand and being busy during the day. I'm like a month and a few weeks in now and finally getting adjusted to it. But it was kind of tiring adjusting to just that. So, yeah, there you go. A little recent player insight in there as well. But look, I remember when Billy Napier got hired and we kind of went, and I think the coaching clinics you were talking about, and it was how he makes a schedule for his players, and the players do that. And I remember that from then, but now we're hearing even more about it too. And look, of course, it's more important for the quarterback spot. But moving forward here, like I think all those items, Seth, that we listed, I think it's huge for a returning quarterback like Graham Mertz. If there are any question about these items, to me, it's where experience should really pay off for Mertz in Florida this year. He was learning so much last season, and now he gets to build on all of this, and all these items should trend in a more positive direction. Playing in this offense last year, and now, putting all that and building on it for year two.
Yeah, I thought they were really kind of finding their rhythm the second half of the year for the most part, and injury obviously hurt. Not being able to finish the season, which you feel like if he plays against Florida State, they got a really good chance to win that game. But his last few games of the year, I thought he played really well, and it was really understanding it and having that guy back. And that's one of the things they liked about him was how much experience he had against good competition playing in the Big Ten. So just adding on to that is only going to help.
Yeah, so Seth, let's go to one part that we want to see this offense grow, and particularly with Graham Mertz, and that's the deep ball. You had mentioned the protection part of it. Well, I'm going to go back to an interview I did with Mertz in late December. It's pretty much the last time he's had a media session here. I'm going to remind everybody of what he said about the deep ball, and then we'll get Seth's thoughts on that as well.
I think there's a lot of different aspects that lead to that, and I think that, I always think back to what I can do better in that sense, and I think across the board, it's on my end, it's being better in protection. Getting some of the right call, picking up blitzes, and then obviously just taking my one-on-one matchups, giving them their best shot to make a play and getting it in their radius. So, I mean, that's definitely an area of focus and definitely an area that we're gonna work this offseason on.
So Seth, I mean, there we go. It was him pretty much admitting pretty much what you what you brought up there earlier was the protection part of that. NFL teams want to know how much of that can you handle. Graham Mertz is. I think Florida probably got hurt there a little bit toward the beginning of the year when Kingsley Oguakin went down at center. I think he probably was a big part of that too. You had to slide in Jake Slaughter. He got experience as the year went on, and I think that's another reason why you saw the offense get better. He got more solidified at center, and Graham Mertz was still learning the offense, still taking his first reps toward the beginning of the season, but everybody got more comfortable in it. So now we do want to see that next step of getting that deep ball completed down the field. Mertz, I think, explained it pretty well, the protection part of it and trusting himself in those one-on-one matchups. Yeah,
this part was interesting. Napier kind of touched on this a little bit because he was talking about the things they want in the quarterback, and footwork, timing, and anticipation was one of them. And he showed the throw. I think the touchdown on a post to Pearsall against Arkansas, I believe. And one of their buzz phrases for anticipation is the ball before the eyes. So the ball in the air before the receiver's eyes turn, right? So he showed that one, and Mertz let that thing go really early. And he said, with the way we pass protected last year, we had to do a lot of ball before eyes. And and then he kind of just offhand said it. And I wasn't going to mention it anywhere, but I've seen there were some other kind of media types there, and they mentioned it. He said we had last year our tackles were guards, and mentioned multiple times that's why you go get tackles in the transfer portal. So I wouldn't be shocked to see both guys kick inside from last year that were playing tackle. So that was interesting. Just he kind of came out with that, and so you go get two pretty highly rated offensive tackle transfers. That'll help your pass protection hopefully as well.
Yeah, I mean, we kind of got already word Damian George is going to be sliding in at guard. So, we'll see what that means for Florida. But, yeah, Crenshaw Dixon there probably at right tackle. And then we'll see at left tackle with Spring if Austin Barber's ready to go, recovering from that injury. If he's still will be left tackle, or bringing up Devin Manuel again from Arkansas. if he'll be the guy. So, all right, Seth. Well, Graham Mertz isn't the only quarterback on the roster, and I like what you brought up about Lagway and what Billy Napier brought up about Lagway and getting ingrained in this mindset after he committed. I was told he was using Florida footballs, to get used to that football already before he's even on campus. So he's ready to hit the ground running and just getting used to them. And also what you heard of him taking, elements of the preparation that Napier and his quarterbacks go through and applying them to his senior year of play. I mean, Graham Mertz, DJ Lagway was really trying to get ahead of the curve here.
Yeah, they said that as soon as he committed, they started doing Zoom meetings with him. I don't know how frequently, but Zoom meetings with him doing this kind of stuff where they're talking coverage recognition. They're talking how do we recognize this coverage? How do we call this coverage? How do we attack it? And so, that kind of stuff coupled with the good coaching I'm sure he got at the high school level kind of helped him accelerate this senior year a little bit. And you saw his numbers were unbelievable. So I that was one of the things that really popped off to me when he basically said, since we got Lagway committed, he's been doing Zoom meetings with us, talking this kind of stuff all the time. So he's already kind of ahead of schedule there, which is really nice. I mean, he's basically been doing this for over a year now, right? He committed in December of 22.
Yep.
So he's been doing these and it's not nothing. It's pretty detailed and a lot of stuff. So he may be a little bit ahead of schedule for most guys, even early enrollees.
All right, Seth, let's kind of wrap up the Billy Napier Clinic side of this, and we'll zoom out before I let you go. I titled the episode, "What Does It Take to Play Quarterback at Florida for Billy Napier?" If you could wrap that up, what would that be?
It's a lot. It's not like other positions. They don't treat it like other positions, it seems like. I know they have, there's a lot of things they label discretionary, which are not. I think it's up to your discretion if you'd like to play, because if you would like to play, these are things you must do. So, you just go through their meetings and their meeting schedule, and in the summer they've got those quarterback lesson plans, which is something I'm pretty sure you've talked about in the past when Napier first got hired, going back through some of his older clinic stuff.
Yeah,
where you're working on these things, but make the guys pad plays. So what is pad plays? What is that? That's something Belichick used to always test his assistants with when he was going to hire young guys. He wants them to pad a play. So what's that mean? It means like down to the inch on everything's got to be perfectly spaced out. The splits for the linemen, the splits for the receivers, every yardage for a route has got to be perfect. It's all got to be, just like you're looking at a map and okay, this is a mile. Everything's got to be the same relative distance. Everything's got to be perfectly lined up on the play. It could take, they're talking about Belichick's got guys, some of the young guys, when they first want to do it, they want to do it so well, it'll take them 30 minutes to an hour just to do one or two plays. They got to do this as part of their thing every summer. They've got to do this, every day or every week. They've got plays they have to pad. And then it's part of, I'm looking through here. Sunday, pad 12 plays of the summary cut up of the opponent. Monday, pad 24 plays. These are things they got to do. So it's a lot of extra work, and it's a lot of extra meetings. I'm sure they meet with O'Hara during lunch every day for 20 minutes, just kind of, and that's just an additional thing. That's not with everybody else's meetings. That's not their position group meetings. They go meet with O'Hara for 20 minutes. And it's a lot of things that put on them, but they do a lot kind of on the other side for them in terms of arm care and in pre-practice routine and post-practice routine, and really trying to take care of them, not overthrow them, not hurt their arms. So it was kind of interesting to see how much detail they put into the position, and you can see why they've had now. There's been some issues with money, it seems like, but for the most part, they've been pretty good at recruiting these quarterbacks. They've had guys interested, gotten guys on campus. You see in the future they get guys on campus, and all these guys rave about Coach O'Hara and things like that. Well, man, they're putting a lot into this. There's a lot that goes into it. And as somebody that played quarterback, I'm like, man, I would love to be in this type of deal, because it's a lot of work. But man, if you do it, you're going to be really well prepared. So it was really impressive.
And this might be taking it too far. And look, we talked about Sark and the comparison and all that kind of stuff too. But I kind of throw this thought away a little bit because I do think it goes too far, but it goes out. It is thrown out there a lot. Can you dispel the thought that this offense, Billy Napier's offense, is quote unquote basic?
No, there's a lot. I mean, there's a ton too. It really, it's a somewhat. I don't think it's revolutionary, and that's something I've said. It's not like this
Good
is
point.
not revolutionary football. When he got hired, you look at Mullen, some of the stuff he was doing, especially early. It's like, oh, this is totally different than what people are doing. This is, we're spreading people out. You're running option concept. It's really that's like revolutionary. I've always said that Napier's offense is well designed. Stuff ties together really well. So your runs, your play action passes, your passing game all ties up really well together. Your motions tie into it. You move, you shift, you motion to get defenses displaced. It's a solid, fine offense. Is it my favorite scheme? No. But to me, when I'm doing stuff on video, as a guy that's coached in the past, it's not my place to pass judgment on whether it's good or bad. What I'm trying to do is explain what the thought process is. And that's why I go to these clinics. I like to see how these guys think. What are they trying to do? What are they trying to accomplish? The offense is fine to me schematically. It's nothing crazy. The amount of detail, I think, is where their edge is. And that's where they think their edge is. And you can see it here. They've got everything planned out, but obviously all anyone cares about is the results on the field. So, that's, to me, that's the toughest thing for him is like if they don't call any different plays all season, they don't coach it any different. Guy makes a field goal, college quarterback sails a 4th and 17. These guys are great coaches all of a sudden, man. Look at that. It's like, no, it's not different. They had a chance to win 8 games in a bowl game. If they won 8 games in a bowl game, what's the all-season discourse? Man, this team's on the rise.
Yeah, we're not talking hot seat at all.
And it's just they didn't call any different plays.
Yeah.
The guy made a field goal, quarterback missed a throw. That's it. No play calling is different. Nothing's really changed.
Yeah, you're talking about the Arkansas-Missouri games there. I mean, that's how close it was.
At the end of the day, and I know he said this, it's about winning and losing. So you got to win. It seems like bad luck doesn't happen as much to really, really good coaches. So, because I remember I was like, man, Muschamp, snake bit, bad luck. Nick Saban doesn't get snake bit that much. You know what I mean? Charlie Strong at USF, I was like, man, he's kind of snake bit. It's bad luck. Kirby Smart doesn't get snake bit that often.
That's true.
It's one of those things where it's tough. The margins are slim, but I think this is where they want to try to find their edge is how detailed, how prepared they're going to be. They do some good stuff on offense, but it's nothing revolutionary. But neither is like Sark's not revolutionary. He does a little bit more RPO stuff, but even then, I got fast guys. I got good offensive linemen. You're going to load the box and stop my run game. Okay, I'm going to throw it over your head. You're going to back up. I'm going to run it at you. It's really not crazy, but it's effective.
All right, Seth, well, let's talk a little bit before I do let you go, maybe where it can change. You brought it up earlier about the play calling duties, and we'll see if anything changed there. Russ Callaway is named co-offensive coordinator. I guess the way to look at it now, Callaway did probably get – well, I know he did. He got more involved last year as well behind the scenes. And I guess if we take a look at what Callaway background is, does Napier take more concepts from Callaway, and that means air raid principles should see their way into the offense some more if that's, implemented into quote-unquote Billy Napier's offense. It did seem like the offense did open up a bit more as the season went on last year. I think experience played a part in that with players like Trey Wilson and Arlis Boardingham coming along as well. Do you pair that with somebody like Callaway? Was he part of that reason as well? Now you got a returning quarterback. So what would you expect to see if more concepts from Callaway are in this offense?
Yeah, I mean, the last couple years, what I'd like to see more of from the offense, and it's something that they're pretty good at in the air raid, is a little more in the quick game. I thought they really had to kind of get rid of it with Richardson a couple of years ago. Just for whatever reason, that wasn't a part of the game. The quick game, RPO stuff. They tried to run it early in the year, and then they threw it out. They did a little bit last year, but that's something I'd like to see a little bit more of, is a little more quick passing game. They run They actually run a lot of air raid stuff already.
So I was going to say, like, I mean, mesh, shallow crosses, I mean, all that stuff. I mean, it's there in the offense.
They run mesh, they run Y cross, they run Y corner. They run 4 verts. They run a lot of air raid staples already. And the one thing I think that's overrated is the play call. Play calling is really collaborative. Now, one guy has the final say. But let's say Russ Callaway is the red zone guy. Well, we're getting down to the red zone. Russ Callaway has helped put the game plan together for the red zone. If this is, and then also, talking about quarterbacks, the quarterbacks helping the game plan as well. They give, hey, these are my favorite calls down here. And that's something they have to work on and give to the coaches and say, these are the calls I like in these situations. So, and you're in the process of a game, Napier might say, hey, Russ, we're getting down to the red zone. What do you like here? And Russ, who's been studying the red zone, may say, I like play X. And he's like, okay. And then he may come to play X the next first down. He may come to play X after. It's not just like everyone shut up. Billy Napier's going to call the plays. Nobody else talks. It's really, it's a lot more collaborative than that.
Yeah.
Guys have certain things they watch not only during the week, but during a game. Somebody's watching the front. Somebody's watching coverage. Somebody's watching blitzes. It's really involved. It's not just, hey, man, we're spinning a wheel calling plays. It's and it's a lot more collaborative than people think typically. Now, I'm not on the headsets. I'm not on the sideline. Maybe it is dictator Billy calling the plays with no input from anybody else. I would be really surprised if that's the case. So
from what I've been told, it's not. It's pretty much what you said.
And that's how it is in most places.
Yeah. And going back to your collaboration part of it, it's somebody backed up in their own territory. It's somebody from 40 to 40. It's somebody crossing to 50. I mean, there's different quadrants. I think Billy Napier called it or something like that. Each offensive assistant has their role in the position on the field.
Yeah, and that's why they split those up. So when we're in a game, first of all, we've had somebody look at these situations intently, and then also you can kind of, especially if your guy's going to be the co-offensive coordinator, or whatever the title is for Callaway. Hey, you work this. What do you like here? Even if he's not making the final call on the play, he's having an impact on the play call and the sequencing of plays. So I think that to me is a little the hubbub over who's calling plays is somewhat overrated. You may see a few changes here or there if Billy wants to give up a little more responsibility. But for the most part, all the stuff we saw is stuff we saw in year one when people thought it was a revolution. It's like, no, it's the same stuff, man. It's just they're making the throws, making the plays a little bit better. So, I wouldn't expect a lot to change, but I would like to see some more in the quick game. And I think you may have the receivers with some of the younger guys, maybe those especially the guys who were freshmen last year. You've got some speed there. It seems like those guys, can win at the line of scrimmage. Maybe you'll see some more quick game stuff with them. And I think that'd be helpful.
I mean, look, even if Russ Callaway is play caller, if he takes over in some form or fashion, it's not like he's going to throw 2 tight end sets out the window. I mean,
I don't think they're going to go. I don't think it's going to go 5 wide. 5 wides or anything like that. So, don't worry. His dad's an O-line coach. I'm pretty sure. So,
yeah. I mean, can you go back to any more background for Russ Callaway? I know, like we said,
he's from the pure air raid. He's from, so he didn't play for Hatcher, but he did coach under him. Hatcher was Chris Hatcher. He's the head coach of Samford now. He was a quarterback at Valdosta State for Hal Mumme and Mike Leach.
Yep.
So, I mean, you're talking the pure air raid. Like when they started doing the siren at Valdosta State, how it's got the name air raid, because they started doing the siren when they scored passing touchdown. So Hatcher left Valdosta State, but one of his assistants took over. I think the offensive coordinator took over, and that's when Callaway came in, played for him, and then his coach under Hatcher, I think, in a couple of different spots. So, yeah, I mean, like the pure air raid, his dad's a coach. I believe his dad was like an offensive line coach by trade. And then he's done some GA work, I know, on the defensive side of the ball, which is interesting because, sometimes you'll see that. I think Florida initially hired him as a defensive analyst, right?
Yep.
So you'll see that where, my brother was the defensive coordinator. I coached with him, and that's kind of, I would be somewhat of a defensive analyst during the game because I'd say, oh, this is what, that's why they're trying to do this. Because I would think of it from the offensive side. Why are they trying to line up like this?
Right.
So we kind of talked in the week about, this is why they're doing that. So, he's got he does have the pure air raid though. That not too much from like the change from Riley's done a little bit different. But I wouldn't be shocked if, that's more the stuff he likes as well. Because I'd imagine he likes to run the football if he's here. So,
all right. Last question, Seth. Spring practice starts on Thursday. We talked about Graham Mertz, and I think I guess for both quarterbacks, has Graham Mertz reached his ceiling? Can he get better? I mean, I think we see the areas he can get better in. I guess we just have to answer the question: will he reach that ceiling? And I get how much is DJ Lagway used? I mean, as we talked about his preparation, but is it just as simple as he's just going to be just like Tim Tebow was under Chris Leak? I know people are getting tired of hearing about that, but that's probably for lack of a better example, that's what you can point to. But is he a short yardage quarterback? Is he a red zone quarterback? Does he get a chance to show his arm off a bit? So to me, heading into spring practice, those are the two biggest questions. How much better can Graham Mertz get? And how much do we expect to see of DJ Lagway?
Yeah, I would really be excited if Mertz could throw the ball away a little bit better this year. That's one thing I would like to see him improve on a little bit. But yeah, I think he can. Just being more comfortable going through it a second time around, because they talk about how many reps the quarterbacks get mentally in this program, and so going through it a second time around is really like it'll be like the fourth or fifth or sixth install for Graham Mertz. So he'll really be kind of on top of what they want to do offensively now. Whereas last year he was a smart kid, but it's hard to pick everything up perfectly. Now he's probably, he's taking that next level college course there. So I'd imagine we can see some improvement from him. Obviously he didn't play perfect last year, but I think the real stuff about the deep ball and stuff, he kind of did what he was told to do in terms of he worked his progression. They checked it down. But hopefully they can clean that up and guys around him can play better, and I'm sure he can improve. And then Lagway, he's going to come in a little more prepared, I think, than most guys. And I think I saw him last year at spring, because they also do a coach's clinic every year at Florida. You get to come watch a spring practice. I think it was last year I saw him, and I'm like, this dude's lower body is humongous. Like, he was big. I was like, holy cow.
Those are tree trunks.
I thought it was like a edge, or I was like, this kid is huge. So he's physically, I'd imagine, ready.
Yeah,
and he's been getting the mental reps for a while. So I would not be shocked to see him. It would be such a nice, just having something for him is just a nice wrinkle to throw at people. A guy that's this athletic also can, throw the ball. It's not like he's just legs. He can pull it out and throw as well. So I think something for him, a wrinkle involving him, would be helpful and help you steal a couple, first downs here and there, and maybe break some more. You want to talk about generate some explosives. If you're really rolling in the run game, and now we saw what kind of element Richardson could add to the run game his year. Now you can throw Lagway out there, and now people have to honor him a little bit on the backside. Maybe you can kind of juice the run game a little bit as well. So I think he can add some interesting wrinkles.
Yeah, we talked about that. It talked about that in the Gators Breakdown Plus chat the other night. It was, all right, ETN's gone. You may miss that explosiveness in the run game. We lost Richardson, and of course you saw the quarterback explosive go away. But look, when Mertz went down and Max Brown came in versus Missouri, you then saw how much that could impact the Florida offense. That's back in play now. That's back in play now.
Yeah, and he's a good enough thrower that you can't just totally load up the box on him, and you feel like if your young receivers from last year, and you even got some guys this year that can just burn, that are guys that can fly. You're going to roll up and, all right, I can take a deep shot. That's an easy read for the quarterback. If they load up the box, I got one-on-ones outside. Let's take a shot. Why not? So, he could add a lot of interesting stuff to the offense. It's, I don't think you have the luxury of redshirting him.
No.
So let it rip.
Yeah. I'll be interested when we get in the fall. Will it be very, very situational, or will it be, all right, we're going to give him a first half drive. We'll give him a second half drive. Doesn't matter what's going on. He's going to get those drives.
Yeah, that'll be how much he plays will be, I think, a real storyline this next year. And the funny part about it is, like, if you tell me he plays a lot, I can't tell you if that means they're really good or really bad.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So it's not one of those things where if a young guy's playing a lot, they must not be very good. Well, I don't know, man. I think you could use them in a lot of different ways. So really exciting. For sure.
All right, Seth Varnadore, everybody check him out right there. Varnadore Films on YouTube, doing a lot of good stuff there. Seth, man, I can't thank you enough for joining on and hopping on Gators Breakdown again.
Hey, no problem. Thanks for having me on.
All right, everybody. That'll do it for this episode of Gators Breakdown. Check me out on social media at GatorDave_SEC. Thank you for joining us on this episode of Gators Breakdown.